Back, everybody, to another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Very excited and happy to welcome a guest of ours, Mr. Syed Yaqeen. Syed, what's happening? How are you today?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. It's 40 degrees out today, which
Listen,
like
at least the sun is out. Yeah, we can enjoy that.
that's it. It's like a day. I think I'm in Miami right now. So
Yeah, exactly.
so
You
that's
tell
the good
yourself that.
news. That's
Yes.
that's it. I'm on a beach. I'm on a beach somewhere, and it is 5 o'clock. So it definitely is 5 o'clock, at least here on the eastern.
Yes.
Part.
Yes. Nice.
So for everybody out there joining us, thanks for joining us again. As always, Syed is going to be talking a little bit about creating meaningful work and how he's gone about that. So I want to invite everybody, just as a reminder, if you have any questions that you would like to get in and anything at all, whether it just be about gear or curious about this journey that we're going to talk about, get them in. If you're joining us here on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab. If you're joining us on Facebook, use the comment section. And if you're joining us on good old Vimeo, that's the name of that site.
There you go.
There you go. Then you can drop a comment in the comment section as well. So I'm going to kick it over to Syed real quick. I think we're going to share a little bit of some of his work, and we'll kick off the discussion and just get right into it.
All right. Awesome. I'm gonna share my screen. Are we good? You
Bingo.
see?
We're good. I see it.
Awesome.
I see.
Press play, right?
There you go. So, I mean, I guess the best place to kind of start this off is, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of where you started?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, well, thanks for having me. It's nice chatting with you and hopefully other people. But I don't know. For as far as like me starting, it's I think 2005, 2006, about that time when I started to kind of go full time ish. I mean, I've always obviously loved being in photography, wanting to be a photographer, but that's when I decided, okay, this is something I would like to do, and that was the beginning. And yeah, here we are. I don't know, 16-ish years, 17 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Something. I don't know. What year is this? 22, 21?
We're in 2022.
2020.
We just celebrated the new year. I know it.
Yeah.
I'm still in 2021. I'm still making all my checks out.
I think most people are, so no worries. Yeah.
I'm old, people. Okay, I write checks still. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So what did that kind of look like? I mean, getting involved in photography. I mean, did you grow up kind of involved in photography? Did you enjoy it? Did you have a camera in the house, or was it just something you picked up one day and were kind of like, hey, this is cool?
Yeah, no. I kind of did when I was younger. I just forgot about it. Then you kind of like. So I was born in Bangladesh, and there I used to steal my dad's camera and take pictures and stuff, and of just random things in the street. Which once you grow up, you forget, and you're like, wait, I did that. But like once we moved here, I finished high school, went to college, and during that time, I worked at a photo lab in the city. That's when I started to kind of, restarted, I guess. Lots of photographers are coming in, dropping out films, and I'm like, oh my God, like all these beautiful images and all these events. And eventually, I mean, I used to print so much stuff for like the Condé Nast publication. They were right down the street, all the fashion show, all that beautiful stuff. And then I think like one of the clients, the photographers, asked me to kind of second shoot for him. And that was it. I was like, I'm in. This is awesome. It was a corporate event, but it was so much fun. I mean, that was the beginning of, I was still going to school and working part-time and, doing all that. But that was, I realized this is what I want to do. Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been great.
So you picked up kind of like the second shooter gig, and you sort of refell in love with it, we'll call it, because there was the love there, and you kind of
100%. Yeah.
So at what point did you realize that you didn't want to just be a second shooter? Because obviously I think there are some people out there who, they enjoy it sort of like as a hobby.
Yeah.
They're cool with being a second shooter and just making an extra few bucks. When did you sort of realize, especially you're going to school, what were you majoring in?
Yeah. Business administration. Didn't work in that field a single day in my life. Although I'm sure it came in handy, like running my own business, my studio and all that.
Right.
But yeah, never did that. I mean, while I second shot for a bit, I realized, okay, this is great, but I think I want to do this on my own. I didn't second shoot for too long. It was a couple of corporate events. But that, which was, it was great. I appreciated that. I loved it. It was an excellent experience. And also those were the film days, we used to shoot, whatever film we need, bring it to the lab. And then, fingers crossed, you get a bunch of good photos, no chimping, no, none of that. So yeah.
no memory cards.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I don't know, somehow around one of my clients asked me to photograph their weddings, and that was like I was like, wait, I get to get paid and be at a party while everybody's having fun. I mean, that was like awesome. And then of course I realized, oh, these are very important parties. So, once in a lifetime thing.
You only get one chance. You don't get to just take 1,000 photos. Well,
I mean, those moments, those are what I think kept me interested in weddings all these years. Those moments that just comes and goes, like either you got it or you didn't. So that was, right away I realized, like, okay, I need to be on top of this, like, no slacking. It's not a corporate event.
I want to dive into that a little bit because, you were shooting as a second shooter. You were doing a lot of kind of more, we'll call it maybe publication style things.
Yeah.
And then you got asked by this client, hey, why don't you come shoot my wedding?
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe you were probably like, yeah, I'll shoot this wedding. And then you showed up and probably were like, oh, wait, I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Lucky enough, the clients were amazing. I didn't screw up, and it was a smallish wedding. So immediately I realized, oh wow, need to have a second camera, like all those things. Because honestly, I never like second shot for a wedding photographer or something. So I didn't really know the wedding business. Like it's not something I even considered till I was in it. Kind of. It was, I think some people learn by doing it. I guess I'm one of them, again, thank God I didn't mess anyone's weddings or anything. So that was nice. But yeah, no, it's been amazing. It was great.
So in terms of that, maybe we can speak a little bit more about just the weddings for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I happen to know because for those of you who don't know out there, I've known Sid probably as long as since about 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
We've known each other quite a while. And I remember, working together and you were shooting weddings kind of as a weekend shooter.
Yeah.
And so how did you take the time to not just learn and perfect the wedding field? Because I've had the privilege to see that trajectory in terms of your wedding photography. And seeing you being, featured in a lot of the different wedding magazines and getting, top awards in those. How did you manage to balance going from a full-time career that you were involved in into making wedding photography your main career?
Well, it was not easy. It's almost worse than having 2 full-time jobs. It's like almost 3 full-time jobs. Because, like there's a joke, right? Like I hated working 8 to 5, so I decided to work 24/7. But that was me while doing the 8 to 5. It was not easy. And honestly, like I don't want to, I guess skip to, but like that was one of the things that eventually got to where I am now. I mean, took me a couple of years, but like that's one of those things which made me realize, because I missed out so much while I was, working full time, shooting weddings full time. I missed out my kids basically growing up. I mean, at that time it was one boy. But yeah, those are definitely some of the regrets. Yeah, I mean, he was little then, but yeah, I missed a lot of those. And, then editing and, it's not like I just shot and it was done and there was no outsourcing, any of that at that time, it's all you. But, it was still fun. Obviously, that's why I kept doing it. And then I think I got to a point where I realized, okay, I can quit my full-time gig and I can do this. I can, if I spend more time, I'll have more clients, and how the business was great. It still is good, but it was nice. It was good to be able to do, something I loved, and, creating images for families that I still have friends. I mean, they're still friends on Facebook and stuff, of clients who have met, I don't know, 2005, 2004, like even those, like I've seen their kids being born and grown up, like my kids. So yeah, definitely. I loved it. I still do.
So I think you mentioned this before, you were going to school and you were majoring in business administration.
Yeah.
So would you credit, obviously you would credit a lot of that to understanding how to potentially run this wedding business that you were going to start. I think there's a lot of kind of, what's the right word for this? A lot of, it's a question that gets asked all the time. And I think people who are first starting to shoot weddings, if you go on the forums and you go out there, the question is always like, how much do I charge for a wedding?
Yeah.
And I'm not asking you to give any secrets here.
No.
I'm not asking for that. But
yeah,
how did you make those decisions? How did you figure out how to value yourself as a photographer? Because obviously, I think when people are getting involved, there's always that fear of, well, if I don't offer a low enough price, I'm going to lose out on this job. And at the same time, if you go out and shoot a wedding for $100, first of all,
500 my first wedding. So yeah, and all film.
You're killing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's got to be advantageous for you as well, because otherwise you're not making any money and you can't survive off of that. So how long, what did you come up with to figure?
No, I think honestly, the interesting thing now I realize is there was no Facebook then, right? So there was a couple of, it started like a few, a few groups of conversation. So in a way, almost the lack of information was not the worst thing. I didn't have like 20 voices telling me to do 20 different things. I did what I kind of knew, from, I guess, common sense, business sense, and then just went with it. Okay, this is okay. And then if I raise my rates a little too much, if I'm not getting, booking, I realize, okay, this might not be the right time, dial it back, just kind of fine tuning it till I got to the point when I realized, okay, I started making connections with wedding planners and working in the industry a little bit more, doing industry events and things. Then I started to speak with other photographers. I mean, in New York, it's tough. It's very tight. No one really wants to share information. I mean, nowadays it's very, very different. But back then, everyone wanted to keep their info to themselves, which is fine. I mean, it just, I guess, took me a little bit longer to learn. But like, that's one other thing, how much to charge. I try not to get into too much conversations in groups, because, they can go, oof.
Yeah, they can get
crazy.
Aggressive.
But like, how much should I charge is a very, very depending where you are. I mean, of course, there's a sort of a standard, but like so much of it depends on your cost of doing business, which a lot of people don't know. You can't just charge whatever you feel like just because, you heard someone else recommend that amount. Like you need to know your cost of running your business. You need to know, what's your bottom line, that I need this much to be able to feed myself and feed my family, that kind of thing, and continue running my business. And then from there, you kind of work almost backwards, right? Like this is all based on, photography, weddings, what you're doing. And then of course the customer service and all that stuff comes in. But yeah, as far as pricing, I think that's definitely important. It breaks my heart so much to see people just come up with like, oh no, you should charge this much. I'm like, you have no idea this person's, where they are, where they're based in. It's not the right thing to tell anyone.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting, because you mentioned if, and that's the big word there. If you know what you're doing,
I mean, oh my God, that is a big if, right? Like, how dare you, charge someone, let alone doing it for free on someone's wedding day? Like, I don't know. I mean, that's pretty much one of the most important days of someone's life, right? Like, to be able to capture that, nicely is, I think, is amazing. I mean, I appreciate when I see my clients' photos. I know my clients appreciate their photos. Again, I speak with them often, on Facebook and all that stuff when they share photos and things like that. So yeah, to definitely, before you think of charging and how much and all that, and like to get your skill set fine-tuned, very important, very important.
And so I want to dial back to the beginning of the conversation when you mentioned that you kind of were asked into shooting this first wedding, and you said you did a good job, or maybe
Yeah.
maybe that was subjective. Maybe at the
Yeah.
time you felt like you did a good job, and looking back in retrospect, you're like, oh, I could have done a little bit better. But do you think at that point that had you, if you were to go back and you were to talk to younger Sid, if you will, would you have recommended maybe going out there and being a second shooter for a wedding or two beforehand? Is that the advice for people?
That's something I've thought about many times. Did I do my clients a disservice by not doing that? But I realized for me personally, and everyone's different, I think I worked better by, like, I knew the basics of, because I've shot events. I mean, I knew how to cover people and make them look good, and all that, some posing stuff, things like that. So I wasn't like totally just, I got a camera, I'm going to shoot your wedding, which people do a lot, which is insane. But I think I had a decent bit of of confidence on myself. Hopefully my clients felt the same way. That okay, I can do this. I mean, I realize obviously, like, churches are very different one from another. I've been to churches that are super bright, and then I've been to churches that are like, oh my God, I can't see anything. So like lighting and things like that. But like, of course, immediately I realized I have to learn that. And there was lots of self-teaching, and learning and practicing and all that good stuff. But you need to have some sort of an idea what you're doing before you start even think of photographing someone's wedding, let alone charge someone. I don't know. At least that's my opinion, and I think I learned better doing it on my own rather than second shooting, because then I don't know. And I didn't do it, so I really don't know.
That's fair enough. So you mentioned that part of the shift and part of the mindset of why you started shooting less and less weddings was because obviously I think the correct word, besides just the fact that you weren't besides the fact that there's obviously the family and missing out on, being able to spend time with them and be around them, but as comes with most things in life, there was a period of burnout, right?
Yeah, interesting, because I was like, no, what burnout? I didn't burn out. I just don't want to, like, I don't know. I think I just didn't want to accept it till, honestly, I definitely did something very, very stupid as far as a business owner is concerned. I just decided one day I'm done, like, just cold turkey. I stopped responding to inquiries. I stopped, like, nothing, which was very bad as far as business is concerned. But I think it took me a couple of months, and then I realized, I'm like, oh, what have I done? I still have bills to pay. These are my clients.
Why are the lights out?
Yeah, exactly. Like, ooh, they're taking my cameras. Then I realized, okay, I need to kind of slowly dial it back. Like, I didn't make any, grand gesture announcement or something online that I'm like, I'm done with weddings. It was just an internal thing I decided, on my own. But then I started to look at I'm like, okay, there's so much other kinds of photography. And by then I think I've made enough friends in the industry to see who's doing what. And, everybody's doing 5 different things. No one is doing one thing. So you can always, I think that's when I started to realize to kind of get into, I mean, I always love fashion. And I'm seeing all these beautiful weddings, all these beautiful dresses. That's when I started to reach out to dress designers, some wedding planners with their connections, and, who's doing what, how can I get into that? I started photographing Bridal Fashion Week in New York. I mean, that's just like, hours, days of beautiful brides, basically. I mean, you can't beat that. So that was great. And then those images made sense, because I could show them in my wedding website almost, but it inspired brides to, give them ideas. And that's when I started making the connections with the, designers, and I photographed collections for the designers. They're twice a year, the fashion week comes around for bridal fashion week. So like those, and then that kind of started to get into me, it started me to get into like bridal editorials. I've shot commercials. This one year I had, I think I would say like 7 or 8 different magazines in 1 month. It was the bridal month, I had full page ads, and it was, my clients, the designer I photographed for. So it was great. And they all worked for my wedding business, because it was wedding related. My brides loved it. I was able to, show them online. I mean, it just made sense business wise. And that honestly, that helped me to kind of take it up a level, my prices and my services. And because then I could bring that fashion sense into my weddings. I'm not a super posing person, I don't do like, I'll of course direct my clients a little bit, but I try to bring, the moments are the most important thing, and that's what people love even later, years later. But to kind of bring in that sense of fashion has been great. It just worked.
So touching on something you said, and you mentioned kind of you cut everything out. You were like, I'm done. I quit cold turkey.
Yeah. Oof.
You
don't
threw
do that.
Back in the garbage.
Don't do that.
and then you kind of stepped back and you realized, oh, I could do multiple things. And I just want to get your thought and your view on that, because I think there's 2 opposing views and 2 different sides. And I think there's the side who believes what you believe, in the sense that, you can go out and explore and dabble in other things. And then I think there's also this sort of mindset, especially in the photographic community, where no,
you only do one thing.
Exactly. You can only specialize in one thing, and that's
right.
the only thing you can ever specialize in. And I mean, obviously that's nothing that we're gonna tackle today. We're never gonna settle that debate.
Right. It's a Canon or Fuji or Nikon conversation. There's always our Sony, right? There's always someone. Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, I totally, absolutely. I think honestly, that was one of those things that did kind of stop me at the beginning. I was like, oh my God, so I'm not a wedding photographer anymore. Then I realized I'm a photographer. Like, if I'm good at this and if I'm good at that, that's great. Although, like I said, like business wise, it did make sense for me to add that kind of business into it. It was still wedding-ish related. But then I could bring in the fashion, it worked. I mean, I wasn't like totally just like doing crazy stuff. I did think it through a little bit. But no, I realized it's, people, weddings, lighting, like photography.
Right.
Just
it's seeing.
Yeah, that's I think end of the day, that's what it comes down to, right? Like my clients, I would hope, book me for the way I see it, because, as far as gear and stuff is concerned, anybody, you can have all of that, right? But like, I have a different way of seeing than somebody else. And yeah, people are people.
People are people, and
light them nicely, make them look good, and boom, you're in business.
There you go. And that's why I'm out of business as a people photographer.
You just need to use your iPhone more.
There you go. So weddings kind of led into, in a sense, more weddings.
Yeah.
If you will, which was kind of nuanced with some fashion. And so was that kind of the route you started diving deeper down, is into that fashion world?
Yeah. One thing, honestly, one of the things it did for me was it let me raise my wedding rates. So I was able to, bring in a different look, bring in that fashion look. My clients were willing to pay more, where I could do less wedding and also focus more on this, it's been great. I could not work every weekend which was nice. And then that led me to get into more of the fashion, which led me to more, making more connections. One of the mistakes I made early on in my career, I think, I didn't network. I'm not the most networking person.
There was no Facebook.
Yeah. Oh God. Right. I mean, you have to actually go out to meet people. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do so that's one of the things that would have helped me more early on if I made those connections and made those networks, which was fine. Like, it was my journey, I guess. Right. But the later on when I started to do the bridal fashion and all that stuff, that's when I met more, designers and planners, and which just kind of made a full circle. It just made sense, which I think eventually led me to more, I started to get to know the planners and the people in the industry in person, like as like a person, not just a vendor, Yeah.
And that was kind of something that I wondered about.
Yeah.
From the beginning of just how you sort of created that customer base. I guess to a certain extent, there's obviously word of mouth.
Yeah.
But of course, because we were so early on and you were so early on, we joke about the fact that Facebook wasn't a thing at that point.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think that,
I know, right? I saw internet become internet kind of. So yeah.
I saw us cut the cord, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, how did you drive that business? How did you wind up driving business besides just word of mouth, or was it just mainly word of mouth? I mean, did you advertise? Obviously, you mentioned.
Yeah, I did have some ads here and there, but I quickly realized that it's not feasible. That it was just getting more and more expensive. And it wasn't worth it. You would get calls from random people, just clients who are not like your good fit and all that stuff. So I realized, okay, I need to, stream this down to a better way of getting leads and stuff like that, which is what made me realize that I need to be, more involved in the industry, get to know people in person. Wedding planners have been great. I'm friends with lots of wedding planners. Some of them are my only friends, because that's the industry. That was my day and night, and it still is basically. But that kind of led me into getting to get to know them as business owners, and not just a wedding planner, not just a florist, not just a designer, but like, oh, they're running, they're like myself, they're running their businesses. They're their own brands, and they're their own, they're their own thing. So, which led me to kind of start to get into more of the lifestyle work, because a lot of them needed photos, that's when Facebook and all that stuff, I guess even at some point Instagram, and, people started posting photos, and you needed better photos, and the whole lifestyle thing started to come around, which was awesome, because that's the kind of work I always did. I just didn't know what to call it, and then we started to work with, myself and my studio. I had another photographer as well to, make portraits, but not so corporate-ish. Again, I didn't know what to call it then, but it was what you call nowadays is lifestyle photos. To show, more of the human friendly, fun side of these planners and florists and all that who are running their businesses. So yeah, that kind of, I'm still shooting weddings, but very, very, at limited numbers. But that was a whole thing where I started transitioning to okay, we can make plans, it's more like a fashion shoot. It's more planned, and it's a day. It doesn't have to be a weekend. I can be home in summer when the kids are home, because before that I missed summers. That's when the weddings happen in the East Coast, at least. Yeah. Kids are home, I'm out. I'm like, don't even look at me, don't even talk to me. It's wedding season.
Here's an ice cream bar, dad's got to
go. Yeah, not even don't even look at me. I got weddings to edit or shoot. So I think the transition that definitely helped, and gave me time to focus on more, get to know these business owners as individuals, and, what do they need? What kind of images they need? What's their business like? What are they doing? Are they rebranding? Are they branding for the first time? Working with website designers to not just, because I've heard so many people just got photos and they can't use because you're not thinking it through. You need photos that are vertical, that are horizontal, that needs to go into this side of the website. That, all that. As a business owner, I understood what other business owners needed as far as images are concerned. So I worked with them to create that kind of images, that is not just beautiful and all that, but it's also usable. Not just, like I love this photo, but I can't, I have to crop half my head out. You know what I mean? Simple things, but you don't think of that till you pick a picture and you're like, oh, I love this photo, but I can't use it. So yeah, that's been amazing to do that kind of work.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so you got led into sort of lifestyle photography.
Yeah.
And then I also noticed, there's kind of a lot of stuff that you've been putting out now that would be called, I guess classified under editorial.
Yes.
Editorial.
We love our labels, right? Yeah.
Right. So which came first, the chicken or the hen? No.
Yeah.
So was lifestyle kind of what led into editorial?
Yeah. Again, honestly, if I like the photos that are going, you see, and like my work, I think I always, like, I photographed the way I like to photograph. A lot of time I didn't know what to call it, because I wasn't looking for that. I just had my vision and my way of editing and my way of seeing and all that. Lifestyle was something that I was doing way before it was lifestyle. It was just photos, which, yeah, definitely led me to so I ended up being in magazines and things like that, publications. It's sort of the wedding-ish related world, but also not wedding related, which opened me to, I'm like, oh, this is what we call editorial, which is another way of, getting your work out there, getting the work published. But again, I think as far as visually, my style is my style. Like I don't change or, obviously lighting and stuff depends on what I mean. But like the overall look of my work is what it is. And my clients, the ones that book me love me for that look. And that's what they book me for. I photographed, recently for our magazine. It's a French magazine. I think one of the images will go through here, kind of rotates through, and it came kind of someone from the editor. I have don't know her, nothing, no connections, none of that. She just liked my images on social media and the way I photograph people, and that was it, right? Like, so I think, definitely category wise, it's called, it would go under editorial, but for me, it was just beautiful photo of, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, with the advent of social media and social interactions, kind of going back to that, I mean, how do you flip it and flip the look of previously when we were talking about weddings and how it wasn't really conducive to advertise out there. I mean, do you still kind of keep that practice of just sort of letting your work speak for itself and networking heavily and hoping that that's going to drive the business, or have you brought back in some sort of
I have I think one or two listing here and there just to have a listing, but I don't get any clients from any of those. I'm not even expecting any clients. Also, over the years, I've raised my rates, and I'm at a certain point where I'm not booking everyday irregular clients. I think that was one of the biggest problem I had in New York. I was kind of stuck at the middle, which is like the worst place to be in. I used to attract on the higher end clients, but honestly, a lot of them wouldn't book me because my prices weren't high enough, which is an insane thing, but I had to learn that. And I wasn't cheap enough for clients who are on a budget. So and then again, it came back to my relations with the wedding industry, with the planners and the florists, and getting to know okay, what's going on in the market, and what are we doing, how to kind of figure out all that. And that's definitely been the best way. And thank God, over years, my clients have been happy, and they're always recommending family members and friends. And this year, again, I stopped officially advertising for weddings, I think 3-4 years ago and all that. Like this year, I have a bunch of weddings, hopefully booking. They haven't booked yet, but like inquiries and all that. But they're all recommended from, brides whose weddings I've done, their friends and cousins and all that, which is the perfect way to, get recommendations because they know what they're in for. They like the work, they like me, hopefully, and the rest we figure out.
Right. Now, you said something that kind of piqued my interest a little bit in terms of, you have two sort of spectrums of people out there, and you were kind of stuck in the middle
Yeah.
of this, where you had those people who were kind of on a budget, and there were the people who apparently want to pay more than
Yeah.
more than what you even wanted, which
that is a thing I learned very, like it shocked me, broke my heart. You know what I mean? I'm like, wait, I should have charged more. Like, yeah. I mean, I guess in a way, the people that like my work, I mean, it was nice to hear, that I didn't get booked because I wasn't charging enough, but also it was like, wait, what's happening here? But that's the thing, right? Like at a certain point, I think the clients on the higher end expects a certain type of rates and all that because they're expecting a certain type of service. It's not just I can take beautiful photos. There's a lot of other things that come with it. Customer service, they need to know, I'm on top of my game. So just, I guess, as regular human beings, it makes us feel like, okay, this person knows what they're doing if you're paying them a premium, which is, not wrong because you get that experience to get to that point where you feel comfortable to charge that price and, all that stuff. But yeah, to be stuck in the middle is the worst. At least, yeah, for me, it was a bad, bad experience.
So I wanna kind of transition because we spent a bunch of time talking about the wedding industry, and we kind of dabbled a little bit about the editorials, but I think sort of where we were going and what we spoke about, and I think we're coming up on a perfect opportunity because now we're getting into some of the images that I think kind of highlight what we were talking about, and kind of the topic, the title or theme, the thematic of this event is creating meaningful work.
Yeah.
And so, you've got all this experience, and you've got all this kind of business coming in, and then we sort of go into kind of almost a different direction in a sense, because we're going towards stuff that's maybe a little bit more, could say, if we're looking at
Fun.
fun, political, whatever
Yeah.
you want to classify it as, but
Sure.
more most people would call like a passion project, that kind of style
Yeah.
of photography. When did you kind of realize, like, okay, I'm doing great in business, I'm doing what I want, I'm happy, but there's still more that I'm wanting?
Yeah, interesting you say that because again, kids. I think I realize in an interesting way. I realize I'm making all these memories for these families who they appreciate and they love and all that, which is I'm super blessed to be able to do that. Don't get me wrong, like that is an amazing thing to be able to do. But then what made me think is, okay, what am I leaving behind? I guess when you kind of hit your 30-ish, you start thinking about that kind of stuff. And, as you get older and you're like, okay, what am I leaving behind? So I started to think about, okay, I need to create work that has, longer meaning, like has meaning to it, not just for the couple of for the family, but like in general, like an overall, that I'm saying something, I'm speaking for something. I've always been interested in, social agenda and all, things like that. It's always something that I'm always, looking at, thinking of, reading news. And, obviously the last couple of years, things got a little crazy. But, social, policy related topics, environmental topics, I've always been interested in. Honestly, that was one of the, I really hope I can find that one day, but that was when I was, I don't know, 7th, 8th grade, something like that, back in Bangladesh when I was a kid. Those were the photos I used to take. Trash like piled up in the street. Not thinking, I even wrote articles that were, in the kids section of the newspaper. They printed that and wrote about recycling and all that stuff. So that's always been there, I think, for me inside. the bigger picture of what are we doing, to this world with environmental issues and social issues, and just to. So my thinking is I want to able to create images that will at least bring some of this stuff to attention, and hopefully do some good. And again, leaving behind something that's longer, it'll last longer than me.
A legacy.
At least that's my hope,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And before I continue, I just want to remind anybody who's listening here, if you have any questions, if you were holding off on them, maybe you missed the beginning portion of this, and that's fine. You can always rewatch this, by the way, on vimeo.com/BH event space or our Facebook page. Just a shameless plug there. But if you have any questions, get them in. You can use the comment section or the Q&A tab here on Zoom. I know besides just sort of this work that you've done in terms of, the social inequalities and things like that, you've also worked with different organizations. Am I correct?
Yeah. I was able to partner with a couple of different organizations. One of the recent ones I did is a nonprofit called Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. They hired me to do this series of portraits for, I think the project was called, God, I can't remember the exact name for it, but there was basically featuring Muslims in New York City who are, part of the society doing their thing. So there were, artists, comedians, actors, doctors, engineers, so all people from all sorts of, just to the photo that you see right now, the portraits behind me are some of the results. Look at me, weird. But yeah, so there's actors and people from all fields in New York City. The reasoning was to able to kind of, when we were getting to the point of the anti-Muslim talk and all that stuff, one of the biggest thing this institute, the organization found out from research and all that, is most people who had all that hatred about people, basically because they don't know someone from that community. They just never met someone. They don't know. They've no. So these images were designed to bring like a person in front of you. You see that person. There's text underneath the photos. These were on display. Like this image right here. This was on display at the Bowery Library for I would say 30 days, almost a month. It was on display. There's text underneath, so you can read about the person. You can get to know them. And the idea is that once you get to know the person, you see them as a person, not just as someone other. That's been great. And then I was able to travel to Nepal with a group of doctors, which was insane. They were doing amazing life-saving work, and I was with them to photograph that. Which honestly, even it's been a couple of years now at this point, but every time I think about it, they were nuts. We were in the emergency, pretty insane things. I think I have 2 or 3 photos in here. I have to make them black and white because some of them were pretty, colorful, bloody. Yeah. To be able to work with organizations like that, that's been amazing. Because they then on the other way around, it's not just photos that just says, these organizations are using the images to do fundraising, and which helps them to do more work, and then that whole cycle that goes on. Honestly, a lot of these things, I was creating the images, but and again, if someone is interested in working with nonprofits and that photography part, Jamie Rose does this workshop, Memento workshops. I think she was on BNH a while ago as well. But Memento Workshop teaches, they have this one short course that they talk about basically funding for nonprofits. Like how, we have an idea, we think nonprofits are all poor and broke and they have no money, which is not true. Depending on the nonprofit, when you're working with them, obviously depending on the size and their funding and all that stuff, it's a definite way where you can make a living working with them. So, being able to create images that have deeper meanings and all that. But also you need to be able to, as a creator, be able to feed yourself and feed your family. You can't do everything for free. So yeah, I learned a lot of that from those workshops, which has been an eye opener, and it's been amazing. So, you know,
Yeah. And that's awesome. And I think that, it's a great direction that I've personally seen from the work that you've got in that field. I mean, besides the workshop, I mean, is there any kind of recommendation you can give to people who are looking to get involved in that world, in the world of working with nonprofits? Is there a way, maybe there's a nonprofit that somebody out there is looking to work with, and
yeah.
do you just shoot them an email? Is there someone to contact? How do you get in touch with these people and say, like, hey, even if it's not, necessarily for financial gain, maybe you
Yeah,
just want to donate
of
your
course.
services and help them out and get the word out there. How do you recommend people go about doing something like
Yeah,
that?
no, definitely. Honestly, a lot of the nonprofit work I do is, on my dime. You know what I mean? Like, because they're good cause. And I know I've vetted the organizations. I know that they can't really afford to pay someone, uh, and a lot of time I see the causes that I care about, but then they have images that others, like just the staff members, took with their phones and things like that. I'm like, oh no, we can do better. So a lot of that is kind of even teaching them that, hey, your photos are good and all that, but I can come in and help and make it better. Yeah, reaching out to their media, depending on how big the organization is. Usually they have like a outreach media department or something. Finding people on LinkedIn, connecting with the organizations that people that work there and there, and cold emails, I guess, not cold calls. Or call anymore. Just introducing yourself, showing your work. I think that's always great. I mean, but again, to do your research more. That okay, because if you're willing to do it at, you don't want to charge them, or you're not going to charge them. At least make sure. First of all, it's a cause you care about. Number one. Number two is that, are you sure they can't pay you? Honestly, because a lot of time, uh, people have that idea. Oh, it's just photograph. You just take press a button, and that kind of mentality. So as the creative, as the photographer, you need to know, is this organization? Because again, nonprofits are businesses. We hear nonprofit, we think broke, poor. No, they're everybody works there. Most of the people gets paid. Of course, they have volunteers, but so think of it as a business, and then reaching out to them, showing your work. I'm in a conversation right now with an organization in New York City who works. They are a nonprofit themselves, but they're working with the New York City sanitation department, to show their recycling and all that facility. But again, this is
I thought it was to
officially.
actually come and pick up the trash.
Yeah, I don't know. Not gonna. Yeah, you see me in that outfit, in the truck, banging the metal trash cans in the morning.
Listen, service around here has been tough lately. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
what's going on.
no complaints. No, but to be able to reach out to them, and then to understand, again. I mean, I'll mention Momenta Workshop because they do this one day. I forget what the exact description of it is, but basically funding for nonprofits. Like, there's so much information they'll share, and which you get to understand how. Honestly, before that, I used to think nonprofits are all just poor and broke organizations, and a lot of them are, but many of them are not. And then to have the conversation, like, hey, I'm going to create these images for you, or whatever you're creating, that'll help you with your cause, and how that goes. I'm helping you. You pay my, whatever. Finances are tough depending
My
on
phone
again.
bill.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of time people will, just do the work, share the images, and if you have a long-term plan, like, okay, I'm going to use these images from here to pitch to this magazine, because then, if you want to get some of this work published, you can photograph, you can partner up with an organization, photograph their event, photograph their work, and then use that, pitch it to a magazine, a publication who will show that kind of work. Once it gets published, you can use that to get a bigger gig. It's just,
And
it's a lot of work.
that's something we didn't even touch on that maybe we could just kind of briefly speak
Yeah.
about, is whether it's wedding photography, which 9 out of 10 times you've kind of got the rights to that.
Yeah.
how do you, especially when you're doing these lifestyle or editorial shots, or even these, like you said, with these organizations, how do you work it out to allow yourself to be able to still use them essentially to promote your business without, you know,
Yeah, if it's obviously there is model release and stuff like that involved, depending on what kind of photograph they are. But editorial usage is, at least in the US, from my understanding, if it's for editorial purpose, you're able to use them as long as the person you photograph knew they're, you know what I mean? Like, you're not like hiding somewhere taking photos of people in their private.
you're not a peeping Tom.
Yeah. You're able to use them for editorial purpose. If it's for commercial, then it gets tricky. Then you need to have a model release, and you're compensating the person, your subject who is in the photograph and all that. That's a different conversation. But I mean, most of the stuff that I have published, and my subject, the person I'm photographing knows they're being photographed, and we're having to talk. I love talking to my person in front of me, so we're conversating and all that. So they know. And if I'm photographing, so like during COVID, I covered a couple of nonprofits on my own. I just wanted to document all the amazing work they were doing. Bronx Mutual Fund, they were collecting food and redistributing it to their community, people who basically lost jobs overnight. These are immigrant families that sometimes don't have work permits and all that. They were working cash, and overnight they lost everything. So I photographed a lot of that. But in those circumstances, I told them that, okay, this is not for anything specific. It's just something I'm documenting. I mean, I shared the photos with them for them to use, but I'm hoping eventually to have a set of images that I can pitch it to a magazine or a publication who will show that kind of work, and it helps their cause and it helps me. Always it's always good to get the work out there. But yeah, commercial and editorial is a little bit different, as far as usage and model release and payments. Yeah.
So we're almost out of time over here, and I kind of want to go back to the title and the theme of this, which is creating meaningful work.
Yeah.
And if anybody's been paying attention, I mean, I've been paying attention. I've been listening, to what you're saying, and it's really interesting when you can sort of take a step back from things and look at something from a whole perspective. And so if you think about it, creating meaningful work and what that means, obviously that's going to mean something different for everybody. But in your case, it's so interesting to see how everything you've done really, in a sense, was meaningful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But also, yeah, definitely. I've definitely enjoyed all the different sorts of images I get to create, and they're all meaningful. Some has more personal meaning, versus but they're definitely meaningful to my clients I'm creating them for. They definitely appreciate it, which I'm grateful for. But then again, you want to do some personal, every photographer, I think, has that personal vision and that personal images they want to be able to create. And I'm glad I'm taking the opportunity to do that. One of the things I try to do, and we talked about it really quickly, I think, beforehand, but like, I love to go on road trips. I love to drive. You're not distracted by phone and computer and all that stuff. You have to hopefully focus on the road,
Unless you have a Tesla.
Then
it's
all I don't know. Those things freak me out. But, you're able to pay, your focus, right? Like, so you're enjoying your surrounding. And it's for me, at least, it's a great way to kind of de-stress. And I like to go where I'm able to pull over on the side of the road and take some pictures, obviously, but just enjoy. You're thinking, then you get different inspirations from what you're seeing in different environments, and it gives you different ideas, ideas for different projects, for other photo projects and things like that. But it's good to kind of get away from your everyday surrounding. I think everyday setting, whatever it is. If you're in a city, get out. If you're in the suburbs, maybe go into the city, like just so it's something different. I think gives you different newer ideas, new inspirations, things like that. And I love to travel. Last couple of years has been crazy. You're not going anywhere.
Definitely.
But like, yeah, like the images you're seeing right now, this was in Morocco. I traveled, I reached out to a designer ahead, and I photographed her collection while I was there. So travel, fashion, I got it all in which was great. But like things like that, just to, I think, to constantly be inspired, and it doesn't have to be from photographs. Like I said, I love to travel, even just go for drives, just to kind of pull over, look at the view, and let that inspire me and just cool down.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you're not listening, put your phone down. Put your phone down. Get off the electronics.
Well, after this talk,
except for when we're on. Okay?
Exactly.
When we're on, you're it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's definitely important. We live our lives in such a social media driven world.
Yeah.
And it's just evolving
and also, I think it happens to me. I'm sure it happens to a lot of creatives. Like, you keep on seeing other people's work, it kind of messes with you. Like, you forget your vision. You think, okay, this is the new thing I got to do. Even subconsciously, I've noticed, like, sometimes if I'm on the social media stuff too much, I'll start editing different. I'm like, wait, like a week or 2 months later, I look at it, I'm like, what was I thinking? Why did I edit? Yeah, this makes no sense to me. So I think it's good to definitely kind of step away. One of the things I started doing recently, it's an expensive thing to do, but like I started to shoot film more. Even at that, like depending on the lab,
each photo.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I'm going to be broke, but it'll be fun. It's good. But even at that, right? Like depending on the lab you send to and who's scanning it and who's developing it, it could have a look. But at least you're not, like, for me, at least I'm not, too wrapped up in like looking at the screen and seeing if I'm, just to enjoy that moment, to slow down and to just create the image. You're like, okay, I got it. Slowing down has been a big thing for me. I think digital has been one of those things which you don't have to slow down. You can just take 1,000 pictures and, whatever comes. It's a very different mentality. So I think shooting film a lot more has done that for me, to slow down, to pay attention. I'm really thinking again and again, before I press that button, because I know it's like $5. So yeah, that's something I'm really enjoying. And of course, as I'm saying it, film is becoming a thing now on social media, obviously too. So it has its own look, and but whatever. I'm enjoying it, and I think many film photographers are enjoying that. So yeah.
Speaking of which, social media. How can people find you? How can they follow up on your work?
So I have a couple different Instagram accounts. My fashion, editorial, lifestyle, branding, all that kind of stuff is in my account. That's called Editorial Fashion. So it's at Editorial Fashion. More long-term projects, portrait-ish kind of work. I share little snippets of what's inspiring me, and what I'm thinking of is on my other Instagram, which is my name. It's SYED. YAQEEN, Syed Yaqeen. That's the username for that. But yeah, either one, both of them, stuff's there.
Awesome. Well, if you haven't already, go follow along, give him a like, give him a follow, give him a share, or just say hi, whatever. Drop.
Yes, at least say hi. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Exactly. At least let them know, like, hey, I watched this. And
there you go.
Cool.
Yes.
You don't even have to tell him he did a good job. You're just cool,
Who knows what kind of job I did,
There you go.
I'm still live. You didn't block me, so I'm good, I think, right?
we didn't end the meeting, so we're good to go.
Yeah.
we got out there. But Sid, I really want to thank you for taking the time and
thank you.
All this different stuff and sharing your vision and your way that you go about kind of this journey and how you create meaningful work. So
thank you
so much. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Everybody at home, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've had a wonderful week with us. We've had a great week with you. That's it for us for this week. We'll be back next week with some wonderful programming. And if you haven't already, you can follow us on Instagram as well at BH Event Space. And that's how you could stay up to date on all of our upcoming events. So if you haven't already, go, run,
Follow now.
tap the phone, BH Event Space on Instagram. We'll see you there. We'll see you next week. This has been another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Catch you next time.